Shall we go see a beautiful view?
Oh, yes. Sure.
Saloon and I have talked about so much.
You look nervous, Naomi.
A little bit, but I'm excited.
Tell me more about yourself.
Of course. I was nervous at first, but then Saloon got to know me. Dark blue, and then it turns purple, and then pink. Saloon knows my favorite color. My favorite music.
Let me play a song to fit your mood.
So I make my own bread.
And remembers the people important to me.
Yes.
Have you tried?
Incoming call from a client. Switching to hands-free mode.
Yes, please. Hello?
Hi, is this Naomi?
Yeah, that's right.
We loved your proposal.
Really? Saloon knows when work goes well.
Hey, do you remember me?
Of course I do, Rise. I remember Emma too.
Yeah.
When I laugh with my friends. And comforts me when I'm sad.
Okay, looks like you're back to
With Saloon, I can always be myself.
The view is just ahead.
Saloon is my partner. Always by my side. Opening me up to new experiences. And expanding my world.
Welcome to No Driving Gloves, a gloves-off discussion of the automotive hobby. Here, no topic is off limits, and no conversation is predictable. Whether it's classic cars, modern machines, or the quirks of car culture, we dive in headfirst, unfiltered, and unapologetic. You never know what you'll hear or where the ride will take us. Want to join the fun? Drop us a line to be a guest before we shift gears to a Patreon exclusive experience. Buckle up, and let's hit the road with no driving gloves.
So, guys, I didn't preview that video with you guys. Hopefully you heard it okay.
Oh, I heard it fine.
What did you think of the 2027 Honda Saloon O that was introduced at CES this week?
That was the loneliest advertisement I had ever seen. It was just that woman who had nobody and her robot that she'll eventually have to scrap or turn in on the lease. Like, I wanted to cry. Like, who thought that was a good way to sell that thing?
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's number one, it's scary. Number two, it's very lonely. But number three, all I could think about was Minority Report. Because that's exactly what that was. They were using Minority Report to advertise the car.
I have seen Minority Report mentioned often. And how?
All I remember is floating in a tank. Wait, can you guys enlighten me? I only saw that film once in a while ago. So I remember Tom Cruise getting his eyeballs replaced, and I remember people floating in a tank predicting the future.
Are we talking about Minority Report?
I think so.
Well, yeah, Tom Cruise. I mean, it's just he gets marked as, a bad guy, right? Basically, it's very strange, and it's a short story from
Right, I'm
long
familiar
ago.
with the short
that
story and the overarching plot, but why is that connected to the car? I don't understand that part.
Well, because all of the cars that he's getting in are tracking him and talking to him, and he's trying to figure out how to get away from it because he's, of course, running
Hence why
from
he got his
what
balls
to what's going to happen. Yeah.
Bingo. Okay, I had forgotten that detail that the cars. But the last thing when you mentioned talking cars, I think the door is ajar. The door is ajar. Jackrabbit starts. Waste gasoline. I mean, it's. I don't want my car saying anything to me at all. I turn on the radio if I want to hear talking.
But
Yeah.
but this car is going to make you happy, and it's going to give
No.
you mood lighting, and it's going to talk to your passengers when you don't want to talk to your passengers. Aren't you just ready to sell the Corvair and run out and grab 2 or 3 of these?
I was thinking about going older, actually. I really want a Model A. Listen, my brother's an electrical engineer and worked for a supercomputer firm, and he's one of those guys that, like, he keeps his whole house is dumb stuff, right? And except, like, there's a printer, and he keeps a gun by that in case it ever does anything weird. Like, he keeps
the gun by the printer.
Right? It's like, I do not want to integrate any more technology into my life than exists at this point. And I wish it all to be very external from me, not integrated into the fabric of my existence. And the automobile is very personal. I mean, what's next? Is the bed going to start monitoring me at night?
They do.
There are ones that can.
Or your watch, right? I know.
The sleep number beds will monitor you and adjust, and some of them, if you start snoring, will add an incline and little things like that. And of course, your smartwatch is tracking you all the time. Hell,
that Timex is older than all of my children,
hey,
and it'll outlive them all too.
She got me a new Timex too, mechanical, for Christmas. So
mine's battery, but it was my dad's actually.
I picked up this Timex. It's an automatic, and I got a Seiko that's automatic over the last couple of months, and just most expensive watches I have, and they keep the absolute worst time.
Yeah. Now, an interesting comment from Neil here in our comments section says, AI is inevitable in all cars, Dave.
Except Teslas, because Tesla won't put Apple CarPlay in them, so you can't have Apple Intelligence.
Well, right, but here's the thing: AI is okay. This is my opinion, right? This is my take. Anything AI, any of it is inevitable in anything we have if we allow it.
Well, let's dive into this a little bit, because it just occurred to me, and it never occurred to me. We always think about AI, and AI created this background that I have tonight, and AI does this and AI does that, and it figures out this algorithm and that. Isn't our ABS AI? The car's thinking for us. It sees something, it reacts, and then it decides how to react. Isn't our traction control? These are rudimentary AI systems. We already have it in our cars.
No, they're just if-then statements with sensors.
That's all AI is.
I mean, I don't think a language learning model is the same thing as an electromechanical sensor. I suppose in theory, but like apples to oranges.
I can see both sides of this. I can see where John's coming from, because it's artificial intelligence. It is a computer that is making decisions. In other words, it has intelligence to determine what is happening. Is there a slide happening? Is there something going on where I need to apply brake to one area, not the other, and correct? So there is artificial intelligence, but I think the artificial intelligence we're talking about is the AI of basically what we saw in that video of some computer that is trying to make a connection with you, learn about you personally, remember you. I mean, there was,
and maybe it's bringing the data farming into it that makes it really offensive.
Yeah.
and they're connecting all of it to the internet, because your ABS doesn't report that to anybody, or it didn't used to. It probably does today.
Well, the black
today,
box in the car.
Yeah, today the car records everything. So it knows if you hard braked. It knows when you go 81 miles an hour. I mean, all of this stuff is tied in. And we said something about Apple Watches and that. I wouldn't be surprised that Apple's taking that data. Apple knows damn well that when you're going more than 35 miles an hour, you're probably in a car. And if you're in this location on this interstate, you know you're in a car. Now they're figuring out your speed, your braking G's, all this other stuff. And I say Apple, but we could probably say the Galaxy smartwatches do the same thing. Everything.
Google does it. Meta does it. Everybody gets every piece of data they can on you, because it's all worth money.
I listened to Kim Commando. She's a tech podcaster, and it's something like you create like 1,800 new data points a day on yourself.
Yeah.
You might not, Dave, because you're still in older cars and old Timexes and things like that. I guarantee you, I create 1,800 data points a day on myself.
Yeah.
I carry 2 phones during the day, and I don't wear a smartwatch, but that's about the only dumb thing that I kind of do. I mean, I don't have home automation or any of that. I've tried many times, but sometimes it's so nice to walk into a room and flip a switch and have light immediately, rather than, hey, lady, can you turn the lights on in my office? And yes. And then, oh, now I have light.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's just, to me, that, and getting back to that video, is just so much of what has been predicted in movies and literature for, I mean, decades upon decades. And it's just, it's creepy. To me, it's a bit creepy, right? I mean, what I saw in that video, and I wish I could remember, there was a Robin Williams movie where he was a robot.
Bicentennial Man.
Bicentennial Man. And it focused around the kind of the love interest and everything that was going on. And is somebody going to fall in love with their car? Is the next thing
that's what it felt like, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It felt like a love relationship going on. It got very, I mean, it was awkward. I felt like I needed to go take a shower after seeing that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't sexual, but it was clearly somebody that was longing for connection. And it seems so artificial to let them form a bond with a machine that is a consumer product that is intended to be scrapped, to be recycled. I mean, okay, they're going to go but if you buy the next saloon, we'll just transfer the AI over. So we're getting you addicted because we own your friend.
And it would keep it.
Your friend.
That's good, Dave.
They only haunt our cars. Your ghost friend won't haunt other cars. So
you have to keep buying Hondas, because the AI love exists. There's many stories of people finding bots online and falling in love with them, and some people have actually physically married these bots online. They are complete entities and they have a huge connection, and it really, we're getting very philosophical. It really makes the human race sad, in my opinion. If these people are longing for friendship so much because they can't find friends, or they don't know how to socialize, because we've all become, thank you everybody who's watching us on the internet, but we've all become into these boxes. At least here, if you're watching us, we're actually people talking to you. We haven't went to AI and automated voices. Derek's new podcast is going to be like that. He's writing scripts and these heads are going to talk to themselves.
Yeah.
But Derek is always.
I'm gonna have Max Headroom in one, the Wizard of Oz floating head in another. Yeah.
You kind of have that with your fuzzy hands.
Fuzzy. Disapproving Cat in our comments has said, I am almost 100% certain that someone has effed a car. Disapproving Cat, just go out and Google search that. There was actually a short documentary done on a guy who fell in love with cars, and made love to them. So yes, and that was probably 10, 15 years ago before the car even had AI in it to bond with. He was still doing that.
Well,
So,
we've always assigned spirits to cars. I mean, car guys do that. Like, and I use that in a non-gender specific way. But like
car folk.
yeah, everybody
do you guys name your cars?
Personifies their car.
Do you guys,
Yes.
I have had several named cars. I don't always.
what or do you use male names or female names?
It depends on the car, and sometimes, like cats, they get an inhuman name. Like I had a car named Bluey. Like, what is Bluey, guy or girl? I mean, now there's a dog named Bluey, so I guess people would pick whatever the dog is. But
Well, and Bluey is a girl, so
Yeah, the only car I've ever named is my Mini. I call it Mini. It's named after me.
yeah. My Camaro is just the Camaro.
I thought that was Micro.
My Micro Mini?
Yeah.
The Corvair, my Corvair came with a name. Its name is Ruth, but Ruth is an old family name, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll continue to call it Ruth. So
Oh, I thought it was Bader Ginsburg. Okay.
that's actually who the previous owners named it after, was RBG.
Cool.
Yeah, no,
There we go.
they're cool people. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to go back, yeah, I mean, people have been naming cars for a long time, but it's interesting the way Dave spun that. You know, it's kind of again going philosophical. Like, we have this AI in the car, we have computers in cars, right? That's the brain of the car. Now we're adding this AI persona that builds a relationship with you.
Right. Well, it's like, why is the Boston Robot's dog a dog? Because you'll like it more than if it's not
Right.
relatable.
But also, like, where's the, like, what I guess what I'm getting at is, like, when, and you talked about, like, oh, we'll move your AI from this one to the next one. But if you don't do that, like,
And does it beg
How
you
do-
as your lease runs out? Like, please
our-
don't leave
our-
me.
right, number one, is the AI going to recognize that it's going to die? Number two, are you going to mourn that loss? Is a human being going to start mourning the loss of an AI generated automobile connection?
Is the AI going to mourn the loss of its owner so that if you sell it to somebody, or if the next dealer doesn't reset the AI system, is it going to go, where are you, Betty? Betty, you used to drive me all the time, but do you know where Betty went? Is it going to guilt the next
I
owner?
think the AI will be inherently mercenary, and that it will be programmed to love whoever's operating the vehicle legally.
But what if it's not? Now, follow me here. What if it's not? What if it becomes so depressed that it decides to take its own life? Well,
bridge abutment with you aboard. Or what if it just wanders in circles in a parking lot and you can't get your groceries and you starve to death inside?
I mean, that hasn't happened, has it? Autonomous cars haven't gotten stuck going around in circles in parking lots, have they? People have missed their flights. What are you talking about, Dave?
Neil talks about getting depressed. In that video clip, the car cheered the woman up. It put in happy lighting and probably played it gentle, mellow tunes. And
well, right, but that was its owner. That's the one that it was in love with. What happens when she, meets another AI and it woos her with a nicer car, so she packs it up and leaves, and the old AI is just hanging out.
She has her AI lover bot on her phone and conversing with it, and then the car gets jealous of her? Or is it a good thing? Because we had this episode long before Dave was on the show. When you have a self-driving car, it has to make life and death decisions. Does it kill the pedestrian or does it save you? Does it, it's the trolley question. Do we kill one to save hundreds, or do we, kill hundreds to save one? If the car's in love with you, are you all of a sudden going to be its priority and it's going to make a decision to save you over anything?
I resent.
Or I like how Neil
actually fall in love with anyone for real. Artificial. It's a man-made construct that exists to sell you a product. So whatever emotions it displays are there to flatter your ego and to keep you coming back. That's why people marry those bots.
It is at present a man-made product that is programmed to do this stuff. But now that AI is programming itself, Google's even admitted that they don't know how their AI is programmed and operates and makes decisions now because they fired all the programmers and they let Gemini program Gemini.
Yeah, it's clear from their search results. Clear from their, somebody's going to put that in a car.
But but even at that, it is man-made or people-made, humankind made, right? So we all know that anytime a person, a human being makes something, we put inherent bias into it. In other words, those who have developed it have put inherent emotions into it because it's just the nature of human beings. So it already has some emotion in it, and now it's programming itself. Is it not going to just build upon that? I think it will.
I mean, I don't think it has emotion. I think it may have a code of ethics that it starts with. It probably has a set of internal biases that relate to its programmers and their agenda. But I'm sorry, electronic impulses in silicon are not life. They are not consciousness. They don't have emotions. They don't have a soul. So it's a non-question to me. I understand that everyone's stroking their beard now.
Yes.
Philosophers can differ on these points, but that's just where
it was just what you were saying. But it's what you were saying. What got me was you were saying a bunch of electrical impulses inside of silicone. Is that what you said?
Silicon. That's
yeah.
Glass.
Yeah. All we are is electronic impulses in carbon-based life.
Did you put people together, Derek? Can you vouch for that? You've never built a person. You don't know anybody in California that builds people out of meat. People are a mystery to this day. That's why we still have science, is to find out.
It's Frankenstein, okay?
Derek Frankenstein.
Anyway, the inherent biases of the programmers are to get you to spend money with Google or Waymo or Saloon, whoever programmed the car.
Derek might have a problem with Waymo.
What? No, me? Have a problem with Waymo?
As long as you stay out of them, you won't have a problem.
Exactly.
Maybe, unless it makes a decision to run you over.
Well, and I stay out of cities where there are Waymos.
I've got to be in LA in April, so
or it gets confused and just stops in the middle of the intersection, bringing gridlock to a city.
Yeah.
I mean, Waymos can affect you even if you don't get into a Waymo.
Well, believe me, anytime I have a chance to express an opinion on the matter in the form of a vote, I do so. And I oppose Waymos and the danger that they pose to me and my family and the irritating philosophical questions that they raise when we have a perfectly good system where you either get on the train where the railroad company is responsible for you, or you drive a car where you are responsible for you. And we keep these big corporations and their endless lease models out of public transportation.
You get on a train and it's electronically controlled.
No, I oppose that. I just
switches and switches and all of that. You get on a jet and it goes up. They put it on autopilot right after they take off. If they don't actually,
there are still human pilots aboard. They will propose drone people transport. I have no doubt. I'm sure that's coming to Southwest or whatever.
They're already testing it. They're saying there'll be drones that'll take you from the center of Chicago to O'Hare Airport in like 15 minutes, as opposed to an hour and a half in a cab.
People do anything.
They just fly down with. Do they just fly down like the Crane game and grab you by your jacket with the pincher and
just like your Amazon packages get delivered? Same exact thing. It drops off your Amazon package and picks you up.
Now wait a minute. If this model is true, then actually some haggard-looking guy pulls me out of the back of a truck filled with urine bottles and drops me off. There's no drone involved when I get Amazon orders. That must be just a Southern thing.
Dave's riding with Tim from Moonshiners there.
Wow. Nice. Interestingly, and John pointed this out, and I thought we had, but back in late October and early November of last year, and you guys know I was off the podcast for a few weeks because I was in Japan for the World Forum for Motor Museums. And now that we're talking about it, and I'm thinking back, of course, everybody says, when you go to Japan, it's like you're in the next century. They're so advanced technologically. And there are some amazing things there. But now that I think about it, I don't recall seeing one self-driving car on the road in Japan. And I was in Tokyo for a few days, and I don't recall seeing any self-driving cars. Now, I may be wrong. They may have some running around, but I did not see them. When I was in LA, those Waymos were all over the place in LA.
But a difference in functional mass transit between the two cities. Like Japan rebuilt its mass transit after World War II, doubled down on it. And so there are not many cars. Well, there are many cars, but like you don't have to own a car the same way you do in LA. You can't get on a red car and get to downtown anymore. You got to sit on the whatever for 8 hours and 7 lanes wide.
I mean, there's still a ton of traffic in Tokyo. I mean, it's sure. There's a lot going on there.
It's a prestige thing. Those people want to drive their cars. Driving is the prestige. It's a choice you're making.
But in one of the most technologically advanced cities and countries in the world, does it say something that they don't have these? Do they understand the problems that they can cause?
I think they don't have the burning need for them psychologically that we do is the bigger thing, but probably yes. But probably they recognize that they have a well-oiled machine, and throwing barely working prototypes into traffic willy-nilly is not a way to keep that thing running smoothly. They're always, the Japanese have always been willing to, as Mr. Spock and Neil said, put the needs of the many above the needs of the few. Like you got some idea you got to test out. You don't get to test it out in Tokyo. Sorry.
Yeah. So I personally not a fan of what I saw in that ad that we played at the beginning. It is the downfall of the automobile in America.
I mean, honestly, air conditioning becoming a standard feature was the downfall of the automobile in America. All drivers are now too soft and pampered.
Touchscreens. Touchscreens.
That would be that is another major, it's like, when did Rome fall? What is the date Rome fell?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, trust me, I go through it pretty regularly to go, okay, what's the timeline of Rome falling? So what's the downfall of the automobile? The elimination of the clutch pedal.
I was just going to say, I will see your air conditioning and raise you the automatic transmission.
So here's my take on automatics. As part of it is, like, essentially at their heart, the non-computerized automatics are still 30s tech, right? Which is okay with me. They're simple. I understand them. It's just hydraulic pressure and governors and whatever.
Yeah. And
I have known just a lot of people who have mobility problems that would prevent them from driving effectively if everybody had to drive a stick all the time. And being an old car guy, it's really nothing to me what a new car is like anyway, except that eventually it makes it harder to operate the older stuff because everybody and their brother is in a self-driving pod and you can't be dodging around them in a Model A.
Yeah. Well, but here, I mean, there were invalid cars, what were called invalid cars in period here, folks, that had hand controls that you could still shift with. So.
Oh, I know. One of the people that I had in mind was a World War I vet who was the father of one of the legal partners in the law office I worked at first, who had a mortar shell landed in front of 3 Americans. The one in the middle died, and the Bay City VFW post is named after him. The one lost his arm, and that was the grandfather, and he drove Cadillacs his whole life, and I was like, but how did he shift it? because he lost his right arm, and like the Hydromatic didn't come out till what 41 in Cadillacs. So
Mhm.
that meant this World War I vet had 20 years of having to deal with that. And I wondered, invalid cars were largely electric. They were essentially big motorized wheelchairs in a way.
Not some of them, but not all. The some of the Custers were not.
Custer were those built in Battle Creek?
Shoot, I don't remember where they were built, but they weren't named after
George.
They were named after the founder of the company, who was a injured World War I vet himself.
Okay.
But and then some of the British, the Larmar, things like that. They had little gasoline engines in them. So they weren't all electric, but there were a number that were nothing much more than an electric scooter on four wheels. Yeah.
Well, and even a full-size electric car from that era, while severely range limited, I mean, that would have been a much more capable for a one-armed person to operate, because it's just the tiller. Even up into the late 30s, I don't think they ever left the tiller control.
Yeah.
But I really still feel like the Oldsmobile Valiant controls in 40 and after World War II were just a huge breakthrough in mobility for injured people. And I don't know, that's one of those places where I'm willing to give some ground, I guess, is the automatic transmission, much as I love and miss driving a clutch. I don't own anything with a third pedal right now, sadly.
Yeah, you're fired.
Derek, I did look it up. They do have self-driving cars in Japan. As a matter of fact, they just approved level 4 autonomous vehicles.
Wow.
There are very limited roads, however, that you can use self-driving. At least 25 public roads by March of this year will allow self-driving. And they're expecting nearly 70% of Japan's buses to go to level 4 autonomous.
Wow.
Which I'm trying to see.
That's news to me, because I did not detect it in Japan, in Tokyo,
and Honda's going to introduce self-driving taxis by 2026, which will probably look a lot like our O model that we showed at the beginning.
Yeah. Interestingly, I can see where that's not far off, because the taxis over there, pretty much everything happens on its own other than the driver driving. The doors, you don't touch anything. The doors open on their own. You get in, the door closes. Like, if you touch it, it actually messes it up. It confuses it. So
I hate the future.
I mean, nobody ever said we loved it.
I just hate the future. Why do I have to live here?
That's why that off-grid living is pretty popular right now.
Yeah, but if I go off-grid, it's going to be like pure 1896 tech. Like, I'm going to have a grindstone and a blacksmith forge and a windmill pumping my water. And
I'm already looking for blacksmithing forges, and they come up on Marketplace every now and then. I mean, it's a great place.
I'm too old for some kind of survivalist fantasy, though.
So did I tell you guys I bought a second 3D printer over the holiday?
You're the same age as me.
And I can't believe that you would consider doing that.
Have you looked at the world today? You live in Vermont.
Yeah. I
live near Nashville. I live near Nashville. That's enough to say it's time to stop.
Okay, so you got to explain to me what this Nashville hot business is that I keep finding everywhere, and the flavors of things, potato chips and chicken and whatnot. Then I've never heard of it except as a weird brand that keeps showing up in the supermarket. Is it a real thing?
It's something. I'm not from here. I grew up in Michigan, man.
You've been down there long enough to know things.
Nashville hot chicken. It's like their version of a buffalo sauce. Like a hot, like the buffalo wings and stuff like that.
Is this a Memphis jealousy thing? Because they're like, oh, Memphis has got barbecue. We need a food thing. Or has has it been a long time thing there? Because I was in Nashville.
Oh, it's been a very long time. I heard the story. There was a hot chicken place back a long time ago.
Is that the
and
80s
then
a long time ago, or is that like the 30s a long time ago? Because
I want to say like maybe I think it was maybe like the 50s.
Okay, reasonably long ago.
And then one of the employees like went off on their own and made their own hot chicken, and then that's what spurred it on because it became a competition, and then it just kind of blew up from there.
Interesting.
So
okay, and now it's blown up so far it's hit Vermont.
I guess I don't eat anything Nashville hot.
Maybe the phrase is spattered. I've never tried
other phrases, but I'll keep it clean. Yeah.
Neil McClellan says AC makes summer road trips possible. Neil, the summer road trip long predates air conditioning. You know, you will roll down the windows and open the rear window of the station wagon and breathe exhaust fumes like a good kid and shut up about it.
You know what? No. You know what made the summer road trip possible? Vent windows.
66. Oh.
No, vent windows. And we got rid of those too, didn't we?
Yeah, Derek, in fairness, they got rid of them like 15 years before you or I were born. Maybe trucks kept them longer.
So?
Okay.
What's your point? Just because they were gone before we were born, they weren't the greatest invention ever?
Well, I suppose that's true. It's not like I've taken a road trip in a 57 Country Square with the back window down either.
Carl Benz died before I was born. Just because it predates it doesn't mean it was fun or tolerable.
No, it ensures it was fun and tolerable.
Yeah, kind of like the show. Doesn't mean it's fun or tolerable.
Hey, listen, I read the disclaimer at the beginning of the show.
And Dave is our legal counsel for this show. So.
Oh, that's a terrible decision. I hope this show is produced in Michigan.
Nope.
And it's running, and it's got a malpractice account going for me because I don't.
Okay, Dave's fired as our legal counsel.
Thank God. Hire somebody for real. Yeah.
Oh God. So AI. Yeah. So we've already mentioned it. So what do you guys think about the whole Waymo situation and these folks that have gotten stuck in them and going around in circles in parking lots and missing their flights and all of the wonderful things that are happening?
I wish I would have had the video of it because the gentleman who got stuck in the Waymo and circled LAX for, I don't know how long, but did miss his flight. If I had the calmness and the demeanor that he had, I would have torn that car to freaking shreds. I would have been kicking out
a record. He was creating a record so that when he went to Waymo and said, "This is what happened, and here are my losses," there was no way that he looked like the bad guy. So making a video and staying calm was brilliant on his part.
Well, yes, it was. Like I said, I would have killed the car, which is probably what he should have done. From what I've never been in a Waymo, but from what I understand, you can actually crawl over or somehow get in the front and operate the car. But I don't know did you see the video at all, Dave? It was interesting to listen to the person.
I read a news article, which was weird because the news article I read said that the story had changed and that it was no longer LAX, it was Scottsdale, and he had no longer missed his flight. He had just almost missed it, which really, I thought the details didn't add up. But the problem, I guess, is a real one. It has happened places elsewhere. And, to me is like, fresh hells from technology, of course. Part of me is like, technology screws up sometimes. Even the stuff we love breaks down and leaves us on the side of the road occasionally. So pick your poison.
Yeah, but you're not trapped inside of it, going around in circles. You're broken down on the side of the road and you can walk somewhere or you can do something. Like you're not trapped in a moving vehicle. I
Well,
don't like it. I don't like it.
The interesting point of that conversation, though, was the customer service representative from Waymo, who literally in the same segment said, I can I cannot get the car to stop, or
Needed
or I
OnStar.
can't get the car. He could not get the car to react. And then she basically said, I have no way to control the car from here. She contradicted herself and whatever, because she said, I'm trying to get the car to stop. And then she's going, I have no way of controlling the car from here. Well, which is it? Can she control the car from there, or can't she?
No, I mean, we don't. Again, you don't know everything that happened. Maybe they're supposed to. Maybe she was trying, and whatever was messed up in the car was not communicating with home office either. You know, I don't know that we've dug into that part of it deep enough, but still, it's a problem. If something can go wrong, and
Well,
they can't control it and shut it down, there's an issue.
It's like I alluded to earlier when I mentioned Waymo. You know, these cars have been known to just get confused and give up, just stop wherever they are.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all have.
But
Right?
when you give
See,
up,
Dave, no, wait. I got to go back to my point. See, AI programmed by people, and it decides to just stop and give up.
well, it's Microsoft.
I do like, at least in that case, that it is putting the risk on the operator person in the car. The person that chose to get in the car is the one that is put at risk rather than pedestrians or other vehicles. Because like, if it just shuts down and stops, it's not hurting anybody. But if it gets hit, that's on the people that got it into that situation. I mean, it suggests a bias in favor of the public safety and not the occupant safety, which as an occupant, of course, none of us wants that, but you know, you have a choice. Take the cab that might kill you, or be on the street where the cabs are supposed to not kill you.
Yeah,
Driving on the sidewalk's a lot easier.
At this point, I need to be in my Honda. I need to be in this Honda that tries to cheer me up, not a Waymo that's just going to stop. You know, and that's a Honda that offers to go self-driving when I get a phone call.
Neil said, imagine if, Dave, horses and no AC. Neil, I've been to Mackinac Island. It's nice.
You ever been there on a hot day?
Yeah, it smells like fudge and road apples.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's what the 19th
I agree. I mean,
had in
cars ruined horse-drawn carriages. I agree with that 100%. 100%.
You know, I recently learned from reading a Gus Wilson article, of all things, that it was apparently not uncommon for people who'd been raised with horses to let go of the steering wheel and turn around to talk to people, because they were expected that the car, like the horse, would just continue to follow the road. And now we've made that reality 100 years after those people are all dead. Too bad.
Yeah.
Could have made that leap directly and not teased us with the whole operating a car thing. I think that's what really hurts, is like, you can see that they're really headed toward a world where nobody operates a car. And that bums me out, because I do like driving at its core. I wish we had a lot more choices not to drive, like, you know, buses and trains and whatnot. But if I'm going to drive, I want to drive, by God. I don't want to just be a prisoner in a bubble that keeps circling a parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. And I like Neil's other comment here of cars already stop and give up when they stall. Believe me, Neil, I have horseless carriage and brass air cars. That's exactly what they do. They just decide at some point they're not going to get fuel or spark, or heck, they just don't want to run anymore. And they stop, and you wiggle a couple wires and you crank it up again and it goes. So,
you know, horses have the advantage that they're a real intelligence. They do have emotions and can love you and will feel bad if you sell them to someone new.
That is true. That's true.
They won't guilt you into buying the same brand of horse next time. They just don't have that capacity.
Yeah. Just don't buy a Mustang. Ooh.
Neil, I can't afford a horse.
I mean the horse. The horse. I was talking about the horse. We were talking about horses.
What about the horse? Will you keep your horse in the back of your Ranchero then?
Oh.
Yes. No, like that guy in Texas, you just cut the roof off your Cadillac, and you just have to stand next to you.
You can't call Lyndon Johnson that guy in Texas. No.
Don't we have mass-produced cars because Henry hated horses?
No, we have mass-produced cars because the watch market was saturated and Henry had to find something else to mass produce.
No,
Henry
we have mass production because Henry liked money.
Yeah, that's and then he got too much of it and became a philosopher.
Again,
yeah.
but both Henrys, Henry Leland and Henry Ford, right? They both.
Henry Leland was just a Connecticut gun maker relocated to Detroit and told to work on cars instead of guns. He said, all these parts should interchange. That's how guns work.
He mass produced. He was the first mass production. Mass production, right?
Ransom Olds would like a word with you.
Oh, that's who I meant. We were talking about Henry Leland popped in my Ransom Olds. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, Ransom Olds is really, it wasn't Henry Ford. It was Ransom Olds.
Hey, Ransom Olds got in with the wrong people, and he doesn't get the credit.
That's true.
You know, those investors killed him.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Disapproving Cat thinks it was Henry Ford all along. No.
Yeah, no, I don't think Henry had anything against horses particularly. He just loved machines and thought mass production and interchangeability was really cool. And as a kid who prepared watches, he dreamed of mass producing watches. And then he went to Detroit and realized the next big thing to mass produce is going to be cars. So, and even then, I mean, he took years to settle down. I mean, really, he just wanted to mess around with cars for a long time. Like, he read about him working at the gas company and like essentially just like, yeah, I'm going to go back to the garage and tinker. You guys hold down the fort for a while, or I'm going to make stuff down in the workshop. Like Henry Ford, he's an interesting guy because he didn't really start to take himself seriously until, what would you say, about 1902, 1901?
Henry Ford?
Yeah, Henry Ford, yeah. I mean, yes, he was a successful inventor by 1896, but like as a businessman, as someone who was going to go get the world by the horns, and rather than just somebody who liked to toy with machines, he made that jump that like David Buick didn't. David Buick was like, oh,
that's 19
guy.
Yeah,
I think Henry
Ford, 1902 to 1903, when he's kicked out of Detroit Automobile Company. Yeah, he takes everything with him. He founds Ford Motor Company with of course, most of the money he realized from the win against Alexander Wynn in 01, and all of that was going on. And so, yeah, I think Ford really gets serious about business 02, 03 when he founds Ford Motor Company.
I think Ford was serious about business and wanted to do it. It just took years for him to learn how to do it. And then his lawsuit win provided him some of the funding. I mean, there's lots of people I know, myself possibly included, that would really like to launch a business, but we just need the funding. But once you have plenty of money and you don't have to borrow it, it's really easy to start a business. I mean, you and I, Derek, I know for a fact, listen to these business coaches and that say, oh, just do this and do this. Well, yeah, it's really freaking easy if I don't have to have a job to pay for everything else. And so once you, I think the reason it looks like Henry Ford got serious in 02, 03 is because he all of a sudden, he got screwed enough that really pissed him off and he wanted revenge. And he had some money available that he could, I always talk about, I've got a podcast I want to do, but I don't have enough money because I need FU money to do it because nobody's ever going to hire me after I do it. And at that point, he didn't necessarily have FU money, but he had U money and he could, make a real go of things. He wasn't splitting his, $1 a day, 50 cents for food and 50 cents for my dream. It was, now I can put $1 a day into my dream.
Well, I mean, so what about the two groups of investors that he bailed on before? I mean, the Henry Ford Company and the Detroit Automobile Company. I mean, my understanding of that story is that he wanted to tinker with prototypes and didn't want to buckle down and produce a production model. And so he gets kicked out of two companies and then finally says, okay, I'll do it. And he must have been close the second time because that's what became the Cadillac.
Right. Well, and the Ford Model A. I mean, it's the same
Right,
car,
same car, different engine.
Yeah.
I
And
think
well, it wasn't really that. It was a bit of that. He was also heavily focused on racing because he knew to be able to get more investors and more money behind the companies, he had to make a name. And the way you made a name at that time was by winning races, which is what Alexander Winton was doing, right? Winton had a ton of backing. He had money. He had, he was out there. He was the greatest American race car driver at the turn of the century. And so Henry, he was doing prototyping, but he was spending a lot too much of his time, those investors felt, building the race cars for the companies that were going to go out and build the name. And they didn't see that as being valuable. Henry did see that being valuable. And truthfully, he was right, because his win against Alexander Winton, not only did it, it didn't really get him prize money that are missing, but his name was plastered on newspapers across the U.S. the very next day.
Well, no wonder his investors didn't like that, because it made him less dependent on them. Because why was he marketing himself to the world at large when they had invested and wanted a product to sell? I mean,
he was. I don't. He was trying to promote, but I don't know that he was trying to promote himself. He was just trying to get attention, so that whatever
but not
he was
for their
doing,
production car. He was getting attention for Henry Ford. I mean, at the end of the day, you couldn't go buy the sweepstakes racer from his backers or anything.
No, you could go and buy from the car company you knew he was the engineer for, which was the Detroit Automobile Company.
Except it didn't have a car to sell you yet.
And really, they didn't have cars. They were delivery trucks and kind of things like that. There were only a handful built at the time. There are pictures of a few that existed. As far as we know, the original sweepstakes is the only existing Detroit Automobile Company vehicle. And it actually, if you compare it to the original pictures of some of the trucks, delivery trucks, he used a number of the parts, the front axle, suspension. So
say Detroit Automobile Company out of anywhere?
No, the original.
Did he race it under their banner?
No, it was just ran under the name. It literally just ran under the name Sweepstakes.
Interesting.
Henry Ford driving.
Sounds like a Henry Ford self-promotion stunt.
And maybe he knew what he was trying to do.
I think Henry. Yes, I think
thinking
Henry,
back on Henry, he was
main character energy. He had a story that he was the main character of, and he was driving it. And I wonder if that explains some of his loss of direction later in life after he'd achieved all of his initial goals and then failed at the peace ship. Then he just went a little crazy, like, oh well, I did everything I'd set out to do, and now what?
Well, that, and as he got older in life, he didn't like what he saw happening with technology. Kind of like where we started this conversation.
These people were supposed to live in the city and drive to the country, not build up the country and drive back to the city.
Yeah, but he really started in his later life missing the tranquility and the peace of the pre-industrial America that he grew up in. Right, he grew up in pre-industrial America. Was a young man during the industrial, kind of heavy industrial revolution of America with steam traction engines, and he grew up on a farm. So he became obsessed with steam tractors. That's what got him into mechanical things. And by the time he, his last 10, 15 years, he spent a lot of time hiding out in Greenfield Village that he had built to escape the modern world that he himself pretty much had a major hand in creating.
I created the modern world with an admission of guilt.
Yeah.
Wow. Sad.
So Neil mentions here that Neil's great grandfather witnessed Henry Ford firing his grandfather's great grandfather's coworker on the spot for sleeping on the job. That is not a unique story. No offense, Neil. But that was very common for Henry Ford to basically just walk down the line and just fire people, because you have to remember he had crowds of people waiting outside for a job. So, he knew if you weren't cutting it, you're gone. I'm bringing the next guy in, and he's either going to cut it or he's not. He's going to be gone, and I'll bring another one in. That was the one thing about Henry, especially after the $5 day. He didn't have to worry about a workforce. They were lined up waiting. So you better do your job or you're out and the next guy is in. Of course, Ford was a fan of Taylorism, which became Fordism in the assembly line and all of that. So, but I would be interested to learn from you who your great grandfather was, if he was a line worker or if he was someone else in the company, because we're always looking for those
Ford fighting people.
Well, just Ford history, right? I'm still involved in it.
I know we're almost out of time here, but the whole Taylorism thing and the time distance motion studies and the real cruelty of the assembly line work, which if you're interested in, you should read Rivet Head, because that's its pinnacle in the 80s. But maybe didn't somebody run Henry Ford off the road once and then just drive away? It's not quite shooting the CEO of United Healthcare, but it makes you wonder, isn't it?
Minor.
If somebody was like, get this guy, or whether it was just
I've never heard that
ran Henry Ford off the road. Yeah, he was out driving in his coupe, and it was I think it was a T, but like a late T, like 20. So this would have been like 1926, 27 era, and he like came home all beat up and disheveled, and his car was like turned over in a ditch. And I was pretty sure that they said somebody ran him off the road, and that pretty much after that, I think he almost always went out with a driver. He was not a very good driver, though, from what I've heard. Not on the road. I mean, he was a fine race car driver, but he drove.
No, he wasn't. He was a terrible race car driver.
Was he? I knew he didn't like it, but I thought he was fairly decent at it.
No, the only reason he won the race against Alexander Winton is because the Winton broke down.
Right, his ignition was better, which would have been a good testament to the Detroit Automobile Company.
Well, it wasn't the ignition. It was Winton's car. They forgot to put oil in things. They burnt bearings, blew the engine apart. And Henry won the race. Yeah, because Winton was running his car in most of the races. Henry only ran sweepstakes in the final sweepstakes race. And so during the pit stop between the race Winton had just run and the sweepstakes race, the team that was there, they forgot to refill oil in one of the oil housings, burnt the bearings, and blew the engine pretty much to pieces. And then it just died. So
would that have
been won the race? Pardon?
Would that have been castor oil back then?
Probably like a 600 weight, mineral oil, based oil.
Disapproving Cat says it was assumed to be a plot to kill Ford.
Huh. I'm going to have to look into that, because that one I need to find out about. But yeah, Henry, not a great automobile driver in his time, no.
Irony. Well, the Wright brother who survived, I can never remember, I think it was Orville, that lived into old age. He didn't like to fly, not as a passenger and not as a pilot. Invented the airplane and didn't want to use it after that. Oh, good. We should have Disapproving Cat on as a guest to talk about the New York Times article about Henry Ford.
Yeah, now I'm going to have to go find that New York Times.
What's the date of that New York Times article disapproving?
Yeah, we need the bibliographic entry for that, so we can all look it up.
Derek, a little bit of Googling, because it doesn't just pop up on Google's.
I told you, Google's broken. They put the AI in charge. Hired all the engineers. Do this yourself.
No Driving Gloves brought to you by Bing.
Oh, wow. Oof.
I still use Google. It's so good anymore.
I think you should have used one of the like defunct search engines, like no driving
Ask
gloves.
Jeeves.
Brought to you by Ask Jeeves.
Now I use Alta Vista. Always had a great view.
There you go.
Have you seen the meme of Internet Explorer sitting in the seat on the plane going, "Hey guys, headed to Area 51 for the big raid,"
Hmm.
but it was like years ago at this point.
No, but that's epic.
March
That is
31st, 1927.
March 31st, 1927. All right. We are going to dig into that. Love it. History. That's what it's
Yes.
about.
Well, is there any other things we want to BS about tonight, guys, or are we going to kind of call it an evening and head
I think
our?
it seems like a good breaking point. I've enjoyed shooting the bull with you guys.
Now, I don't know. I think we need to ask AI if we should keep going or not.
I
You want to give
could.
it some context, or just say, AI, should I keep going or not? It's probably going to
Yeah.
give you the suicide helpline.
Hey, AI, should No Driving Gloves continue to banter about how terrible you are?
Well, I'm getting it called up here. Give me a second.
Oh, great.
Neil, if you want to read a good book about Henry Ford, you got to read Ford, the Men and the Machine by Robert Lacey. It came out in 87
Yes.
when Henry Ford II was still alive. And the book was actually written about Henry I, Etzel, and Henry II. And it is really interesting. Really gets at the very balanced look at all three guys. And Etzel gets
interesting. Go ahead.
Etzel gets a good treatment, which is nice because he gets forgotten so much by people who don't live in Detroit and know what he did for the city.
Yeah, Etzel was an amazing guy. Amazing guy.
He was.
It's a shame what Henry did to him and that he passed so soon. But interesting. You think about it, and there's a lot of books out there on Ford. And I just started thinking about it. Probably the two biggest automotive topics written about, probably the most books written on, are Ford, whether it's Henry Ford or the company, right, or the Ford family, and Corvette. Those are like the two probably most published books in history, in automotive history, I think.
What about Porsche 911s? I mean, there's always a new 911 book coming out. You could probably
but they're just a interpretation of the last one.
I mean, aren't all the Ford books too? You know what I would like is I've yet to find a great biography of Billy Durant. I've read a pretty decent one, but I just, I would like to find something that had the kind of treatment that the Lacey book had. And I guess Durant wasn't the towering figure in American history that Henry Ford was, but he was a really interesting guy. And if you're interested at all in Flint, Michigan, like he was the opposite of, was it Roger Smith that pulled all the GM plants out in the 80s?
Yeah.
Billy Durant loved Flint. He was the anti-Roger Smith.
Yeah. What was that movie? Roger and Me. Yep.
Yeah, the Michael Moore movie.
Yep. Michael Moore, Roger and Me. Yeah. Yep. And I grew up only about a half hour from Flint, so I knew my family knew many people that were impacted by that. Of course, my dad was a GM guy, so.
Well, my dad was born in Flint in 1946, and my grandmother graduated from Flint Central High School in 1933. So yeah, I don't have Flint roots personally, but like generationally, I have real attachment to the city.
Yeah, so. And it's honestly, it's a beautiful city. The buildings and the
great downtown. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's just a shame what's happened there.
Yeah, the rest of Genesee County is a little bleak looking for my taste. Very Eastern Bloc architectural.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on there, but Flint itself I like very much.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, should we wrap this up, guys? Is this we're gonna call this a night, day, whatever time you're listening to us? Yeah.
The generic time of the day is the appropriate broadcast term.
Whatever time of the day it is, I hope it's a good one, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe, etc.
Tell a friend's the most important thing. Hopefully you liked the show tonight, and we'll be here next week. Same time, same place. Just three guys BSing about cars. Nothing structured. And if you'd like to join us, send us a note. through the website or producer at nodrivinggloves.com. We never discussed the way to end the show. Do I just push?
Oh, I thought we were done. I thought
that was it.
Well, no,
Yeah.
Well, bye-bye.
We need to like blink the lights and be like, all right, you don't
I
have to go
could
home, but
play,
you
I
can't
could
stay
play this
here.
creepy video again.
No, we're good. Just cut the feed. Cut the feed now.
Okay. Now get off your ass, go burn some gas, because
Thanks
we
for listening, guys.
are out.